Steinbeck is a celebrated author around the world.
Winner of the Nobel Prize in 1962, John Steinbeck gave voice to working-class America.
He writes about people we're not familiar with, but he makes them relatable to a general audience. In spite of the fact that he's writing about hobos and tramps and Okies and other people such as that, he manages to stress the universal condition that we all share.
John Ernst Steinbeck was born on February 27, 1902, in Salinas, California, a region that would later be the setting for many of his most famous works.
Steinbeck reflected California through the people and the landscape and the history. Not only was he a wonderful writer, but he was a great student of his own home.
Steinbeck enrolled in Stanford University in 1919, but eventually dropped out. He continued to write, but for years was simply scraping by, until 1935, when he would receive his first critical success.
Tortilla Flat was a huge bestseller. No one expected it. It sold 26,000 copies in its first year, which was astonishing during the middle of the Depression. It came out in 1935. This is a beautiful story about a gang of winos living in a rundown house in California just after World War I.
In 1937, Steinbeck's novella of Mice and Men became an immediate bestseller, and its play adaptation won him the New York Drama Critics Circle Award.
What he wanted to do was to write something called a play novelette. He was playing with a new form of writing. He wanted the story to be lifted from the book onto the stage. He wanted it played. He wanted it performed.
I think what appealed to readers about Of Mice and Men was the fact that it dealt realistically with the grim situation of the Depression and the inability of people to find work. But it also struck an emotional chord with readers because in spite of all that, there's this very strong friendship between George and Lenny, and that seems to compensate for what they don't have in their lives.
Steinbeck reported on migrant farm workers for the San Francisco Chronicle in 1939, providing the basis for his Pulitzer Prize-winning work, The Grapes of Wrath.
The Grapes of Wrath was an immediate bestseller when it came out and remained on the bestseller list for more than a year.
It set a lot of things in motion. Not only is this a story about the Joads, but the story about a lot of people. It put a face on the harsh truths that were occurring at the time in this country.
In 1940, the screen version of The Grapes of Wrath became one of the first 25 films selected for preservation by the Library of Congress.
It's rare for a masterpiece to translate into a great film. The Grapes of Wrath, directed by John Ford, is a masterpiece in cinema history. The timing is perfect, the setting, the lighting, the characters.
Steinbeck died following a heart attack on December 20th, 1968, but left a legacy of 27 books.
Steinbeck had a huge, productive decade. Over a 10-year period, he produced half a dozen of America's great masterpieces in fiction.